All right, we have now talked through Kanban, we've talked through waste, and we've talked through software development methodologies. Bringing it back now to the perfect project. What it is, some attributes of a perfect project from a number of different directions that I'd like to talk through. First of all, it's a science. It is something that can be measured. It is something that you can measure, change, and then measure again and discover whether or not the change you have made is a good one. First of all, you're going to have a team, and I'm going to split the team part into two parts. There's us and there's the client. So what's needed from our team? I don't want to have someone on my team who's not friendly and accommodating. There are times where things go wrong. There are times where difficult conversations need to occur. And one of the things that is vital when it comes to picking your software developer, making sure that they are someone you can talk to and someone you don't, if you feel in any way like, oh, I don't want to have to call them again, that is a bad relationship that you want to be careful of, because that lowers the likelihood that you're going to be able to bring up an important issue. They need to be empowered to make decisions and raise issues. So obviously making decisions is something that you want to make sure it goes through all appropriate checks and that everyone's in agreement that the decision should be made. But you don't want people who are just doing drone work, who are implementing. If they see something wrong, you don't want them going, oh, well, it's what's written there, and tapping away and doing the wrong thing. You want them actually feeling comfortable enough to give you a call and say, hey, I think, if we did this slightly differently, it would save a heap of money or save a heap of time. Flexible and non-dogmatic, same kind of thing again. You don't want someone who says, I'm not going to do it that way, like I'm not going to do it the way you want it because of a personal decision that I hate Waterfall, I'm not going to work on that project. You want people who will maybe have the argument around the benefits and cons, but ultimately will work with the team and with the process. And you want them solution driven. You want them to be thinking about the best way to achieve the desired outcome. Again, if they see a better way of doing something, you want them to be raising that. And you want them to have a high degree of ownership. You want them to actually be able to say, this was our bad. Like, we did the wrong thing. We either didn't follow the process, we did something wrong, we've released a bug that should have been picked up, something like that. You want them to not be afraid of that. But at the same time, you need to make sure that the conversations are nice enough that you don't scare them off from being that. Ownership is a thing that should be encouraged. And then there's the client. So what do we want in a client? We want a client who is open to discussion. Again, we want to evolve the process and the product and get the best result. And the only way we can do that is by having a discussion and having communication around it. We want them engaged in the process. So as we've said, some of our best projects are ones where we are talking to our clients frequently and really have an open and engaged relationship with them. We had Andy, who's going to speak to you later. He had one of his BAs work in our offices 4 days a week for somewhere in the region of 9 months, because that was what the project required. It required that really, really deep engagement from their side. We were dealing with complex legal stuff that if you were trying to document it or deal with it in an hour-a-week phone call, it just wouldn't have worked. So engagement is really important. They need to be motivated to succeed in their market. So that means making the changes that are required to succeed, not being inflexible as to what it is they're trying to build. Ideally, a single point of contact and decision making. So if you have to refer to 9 different people to get an answer on a thing, or if a committee needs to meet every time a decision needs to make, slows your process down, particularly when it comes to, this is actually a benefit of Waterfall. You only have to have those conversations once. If you're trying to do things in an agile fashion, every time you raise an issue and have to go through that whole process, it can be a nightmare. And they need to be open to the idea of being wrong, as in open to the concept that what I was going to build isn't the right thing. I'm happy to be flexible. And finally, we've got the process. So what's needed in a process? You need a concrete starting point. Just get something down on paper. Work with the concept that you're going to evolve the system. That is probably the only thing that I am dead set against with Waterfall, and that is the concept that nothing will change. I like being able to see a problem and address it. But you need to have a concrete starting point so you can start having that discussion. Needs agreement from all parties. Even if it requires a bit of debate and not everyone gets what everyone wants, you need everyone to own the process and realise that they have decided and agreed that that's how things are going to be run, and they need to own the good and bad from that. And you need to know where the dials are. You need to know what you can change, and when you change it, what does it do? So you need to understand, for instance, if you bring more people onto the project, you may get a bit of a benefit in how fast things are going, but there's also an increased overhead of having to keep multiple people engaged. The larger your team scales, the more you lose in other areas. But you need to know where those dials are and know how to tweak them and what results you get out of them. And finally, you need visibility. That is by far the most important one, because everything else flows out of that. If you have visibility of your process, then you gain a whole lot of power that you didn't previously have. All right, so just quickly running through what we've learned. We've talked through waste and some of the common types of waste that we find in software development, and how to recognise and tackle them in a number of cases. Waste is a topic that I just love, so if you catch me around for the rest of the day, I will happily talk through any form of waste and addressing of it. It's a passion. We've explored a number of development methodologies and their strengths and weaknesses, and I'm hoping that I've left you with the idea that they are really just a vast toolkit that people have decided to take a few of and put a label on. Really, it's just, you've got lots of different options. Learn about as many as you can. Learn about ones that you particularly sound like you think are going to be distasteful, because you may find a little nugget in there that you might take and use to evolve your later processes. And finally, we've talked through what a Kanban board is and how Kanban practices can enhance, I've said project, but really they can enhance anything. Think of any internal system you have. Think of the benefits you'd get from adding some visibility to that. Any process made visible suddenly becomes a lot easier to improve. And we're done. Thank you all.